How are you doing?
Fine. Well, not too bad considering it's 4 days into the tour and the drive. So it's actually nice to be out in the sunshine for a change. To be honest with you, to be stuck on the bus, not much time to see anything, or when you're on tour. But yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, so you're starting the tour with Inciferum and Wolfheart.
Yeah.
How's that going? Also,
It's going great. Really, really good. It was a bit surprised. Just a few weeks ago, we got a call if we would be a sort of special guests on this tour. It's a short tour, and it's a while since we've actually done a tour. We tend to do more festivals nowadays, but we've got a new album out, so it seemed to be the right. It was actually a record company that sort of give us a shout for it, and we said yeah. We're a bit sort of spread out. I actually live in Spain now, so getting the band and everything together was a bit short notice, but it's worked out really well.
okay. Skyclad is one of the pioneers of its genre. If you take a look at the back at the days when the band first started compared to nowadays, you'd find out that there's a lot of bands who have been doing or recreating the same things over and over and over. Do you think there's still room for creativity and uniqueness in this genre?
Well, I would like to think so. Obviously, one of the dangers is that it's become very crowded, and everybody seems to be doing a lot of the same thing.
Yeah.
Saying the same thing in the same sort of way, So it would be nice for some people to. I mean, I think what happens is that some people, it's got an ethnic dimension to it, in that the basic format is that you got heavy guitars and thrash or speed metal or whatever it is, but then you add some sort of folk element to it, and wherever that comes from, they can. And that's what makes it a little bit interesting if you can, and obviously singing in their own language. There's a lot of people do with that as well, which is also interesting. But as I say, a lot of people have done that sort of thing. So I don't know whether it's kind of reached a point where somebody could do something new with it.
England is the hometown of a lot of bands that has shaped the early sounds of heavy metal. And coming from England yourself, what are your thoughts on the cultural and environmental factors, and how do they relate to the music?
Oh, that's a big question. I think the thing with the heavy metal side of things is a lot of it came from somewhere like Birmingham, for example. We come from Newcastle and London, which are kind of industrial places, I suppose. I don't know if it's that sort of culture. It reminds me a lot of somewhere where likes of football comes from as well. You get the same sort of idea where people take up a sport or they take up music as a way of kind of expressing themselves, because they get out of these places which are not necessarily the capital or whatever. A bit of escapism, I suppose, that comes from there, and that kind of helps shapes it, I think, to get away from the, as I say, the industrial sort of going to work sort of lifestyle, the factories and all that sort of thing. And so it's a release for that. And it's very similar to Birmingham, Newcastle, Glasgow, places like this. They're fairly similar. I think that's got a lot to do with it.
Following up on that, how do you think musicians or artists in general can distinguish themselves in a world where everything seems so overdone or overexposed?
Well, it's similar to what we were just saying before about everybody saying the same thing. I think the most important thing is to try and sort of do something that you enjoy. That's got to be the crucial thing, and not to follow what other people are doing. If that's possible. I mean, it's down to being an individual, like what you do, for example, with this blogging and things like that. You have your own ideas on how it should be done, and if you keep to that idea and not sort of be swayed by what's trendy or what's trending at the minute and all that sort of thing, eventually you might grow an audience. It might never be a big thing, but it depends what you start out to. If you want to be popular or successful, if you want to make money out of something, then you might try and be moulded or go in a certain way. As a sort of fast track to sort of stardom, if that's what helps you. But it depends what you're after. If you're not after that sort of thing, if you're actually after enjoying what you do, it doesn't really matter whether there's 100 people there or 1,000 people there or whatever, and you just keep on it, and eventually people will see the worth in it, and you'll find your market. You find out how big you can grow, that sort of thing.
Okay. Interesting. Let's talk about your latest album, Forward into the Past. Does the title indicate somehow everything that the band has achieved in the past, or was it really about?
It's a lot. There's a few things to it. It's largely about being on tour, actually, which has just reinforced the thinking behind it, because you're talking about expressing yourselves and doing what you do, and this is basically what we do. I think been doing this for about 30 years now, and so it's kind of like the tour and the live thing, the rock music thing, with particularly guitar-based things. Again, I've pretty much done. It's kind of it's in a genre everybody knows this, and I think for me it's been largely as a personal thing, and be coming to terms with that. If you like, just accepting the fact that, well, this is it. That this is my natural environment, yeah, and I'm comfy in this. It's because it's changes. I worked outside of it before, and this was pushed back a little bit, and there was an imbalance, and it was like, so I could leave this. We were sort of inactive for a little bit. And I looked at it and I thought, I don't like this state of affairs. I need to be back in doing this. So I changed those things around. So it was kind of like going into the past, or being comfortable with this space and how we do this. It says in the notes on the beginning of the album, I was trying to write about this as to what the album was about, and because it says it's a guitar-based thing, and everything has a finite life. In 50 years' time, I don't know whether they'll still be doing this, because I read that you keep reading these things about kids buying turntables and skateboards and whatever else it is, and maybe it's the guitar thing. It was a baby boomer thing. It's been around a while now, so I don't know how much longer it'll last, but this is what it is, and so I enjoy it for for what it is.
For 30 years, I cannot even imagine that. I'm 21 years old. That's more than I've ever lived. So, as old schoolers, what do you think on the direction the music has taken nowadays? And when you get into the studio, do you think that the modern practices and technology has taken the fun factor out of recording?
Yes, to a degree, yeah. I mean, technology, you've got to, it's great when it's great, but it can also create lots of problems. But you can't ignore it. You got to go with it. It's interesting if you're actually talking about Ensiferum. I was talking about this last night about the making of their album, and they went back to the analog stuff to do this. And when we made our new album, we were in Newcastle and recorded it in Newcastle, which we haven't done for a long time. With the last album we did record in Italy. So that meant that we were at home, and therefore we could use our own stuff, which is old and lying around, but we're very comfy with it, and we plug it in and it sounds like us. It wasn't in the studio, it wasn't processed, and it wasn't hired and all the latest stuff. It was just our old stuff, and I think that comes across in the recording, this fact that we're comfortable at home. And this idea of going back to analog as they did, and slamming on tapes and using analog desks and stuff there, it's to get back to some of that warmth and that creativity that we used to have in the old days. But we still rely heavily on technology, because you have unlimited tracks and you can do all cutting and pasting and move things around. And we recorded it in Newcastle, but it was mastered and mixed in Italy again. And so we didn't even go. So you just send stuff by the net, and he mixes it and send it back, and you Skype and you just say, no, I changed this. So it's using the technology. It's the best of both worlds if you can do it. Going back to analog is a very expensive option, but again, if you can mix the technologies, I think you try and get the best of both worlds.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the boredom of touring?
The what? Sorry.
The boredom.
I actually don't think the biggest problem is trying to get sleep. That's the first thing. Was sleep the day away, because the nights are very late. Actually, this tour has not been too bad, because we've got 3 bands on, and it's quite a busy schedule. And if you're busy, you tend not to get too bored with it. Just driving in. But We always try and maybe do a little bit of writing and stuff like that as well, to be honest with you, a bit of practice and just like thinking about the band. So we try to do a bit of that. We don't seem to spend very much time doing anything else other than loading in, loading out, setting up and drinking, sleeping, and that's about it really in the days. They tend to fly by, to be honest with you.
What's your favorite drinking game?
We don't. I don't have any. I've never played drinking games, so I don't know.
Okay.
I think the band used to do some in the past. I had something to do with bingos, but I was always working in the studio, so I didn't join in. I just.
Do you go on stage on an empty stomach?
No, I think I prefer to be honest with you. I prefer to, but again, it's just the way that things are with the food. It's more difficult if you get too much of a heavy meal, so I tend to have. But you can't not eat all day, so you have to. It's just a question of time, and if it gets too close to a gig, then I don't eat. If it gets too close to the gig, like half an hour now, or just no. I have to. If it's 2 or 3 hours before, you need something, you need some energy, so you have to eat something. But so I prefer to be hungry rather than full.
So these were my questions. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me.
Is that it? All right, that's very.